So tonight be joined by Sky Sports Premier League reporter Patrick Davison. We're going to have sort of a general chat about the Premier League and the season so far. Patch, we're 8 games in. Fans are back in the grounds. How have you found the season so far?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to get home. That is the one complaint I'd have, but it's 100 times better. I can remember those first weeks, Project Restart, and thinking, we just need to get through these few weeks. And that at that point, with the empty stadiums, it was still quite exciting initially, just because you thought you'll be able to hear a bit more tactical stuff from the coaches. And obviously, we'd all been locked up, so it felt great to be back at football matches, great to be back at work. But then, at times last season, it was a real slog. We were doing 2 or 3 games a weekend, which, look, don't get me wrong, I know it's a great job, but in empty stadiums, yes, some of it was a bit of a slog. So to have fans back and atmospheres back, hopefully we'll never forget again just how great it is to have a stadium full of people.
Yeah, I mean, the interviews for yourself, I think it's the same setup, is it? Is it the 2 meters distance?
Yeah, but it's just actually for the first time this weekend, we were back inside. I was at Brentford, which was brilliant, like really welcoming club. I'd recommend to anyone actually getting to a game there because, like that freshness of a team.
Yeah.
Never been in the Premier League before, just the joy of it. It was absolutely brilliant. And the last, I don't know if you saw the game, but the last 25 minutes maybe, Brentford really got after Chelsea.
Yeah.
Long throws, kept bombing it in the box, and it was great. But the interviews were back inside. So that has been a testing thing actually with fans back, which is no disrespect to anyone, but obviously fans, the boards go up, so everyone cottons on to the fact that the players are going to be there. So you have loads of people stay. We had one at Villa where there was some fans shouting stuff, and Dean Smith actually, I said, Dean, we can't do this. And he went, don't worry, I'll shut them up. So he sort of walked over and had to quieten down 1 or 2. So you're doing that. And then like when Brighton got a last minute equaliser at Palace, you just feel like nervous in a whole new way because you're thinking, I don't know what someone's going to shout or sing and I can't hear the person speaking. So to have it inside where you can listen and react, that was quite nice. So that's back now for the host broadcaster. So if it's Sky or BT, those people will be inside, and the other interviews, which is like BBC radio stuff, which isn't as time sensitive, they're still out on the pitch. So back inside, which is good. It's good.
The season itself, I mean, probably to start with, you'd have to go United, the problems they're having at the moment, which is, I mean, no harm from my point of view.
Sound like you're enjoying it, Dara.
Yeah, I am enjoying it. It was a good day Saturday. It couldn't have gone much better, but it's almost like, whatever about the Sancho and Varane signings for United, the Ronaldo one seems like it could be actually the downfall of Ollie in a weird way. It's almost like just raised that expectation through the roof now. And Gary Neville said it, Ronaldo's here to win. You have to win with Ronaldo. He's not here for the long-term project, if you like. No,
I agree. But I just sort of wonder how it all fits together. I mean, so if I'm not wrong, on Saturday, you got Matic and Pogba.
Yeah.
Pogba's a wonderful player, absolutely brilliant player, and started the season quite well out on the left. But he's not, over a couple of seasons, I think we know, he's the best defensive midfielder in the world. Then you've got Fernandes, and you've got 3 up top, and I'm just not sure about that. I mean, Ronaldo, the stats there, doesn't press a lot. He scores, but some of the other stuff that a modern team expects from a forward, he's not going to do. So it suddenly feels like, obviously Sancho hasn't made a flying start, but you've got Greenwood. So if Ronaldo's through the top, you've got Greenwood or Sancho out on the right, Pogba, Martial, Rashford back now on the left. So it feels like he's got a real conundrum in terms of how it all fits together. And if you look at, again, the Chelsea game that I did the weekend, Tuchel's playing basically 2 attacking players. He played Lukaku and Werner. He played 3 sort of proper midfielders and 5 defenders. So, and Liverpool's the same, isn't it? It's Salah and Mane, and even they do their work. Firmino obviously is renowned for the work he puts into a game. So when to compare United to those two teams, facing Liverpool and Chelsea is like facing a ring of steel. And whereas Man United, it is a bit, I saw it, I think I saw it this morning, someone said it's a bit Galactico-y, and it is a little bit like that. It doesn't feel balanced. I'm not sure where they all fit in. There's a number of players there, Ronaldo being top of the list, where you think, can he really drop them? So it just, it feels like a bit of a mess, if I'm honest.
It does feel like it's individuals at the moment. As I said, the Liverpool team kind of press together. It seems like Fernandes just goes all over the place, and there's no real player to back him up. You nearly have to go in packs. And again, going back to Gary Neville, I think Cara was having a bit of a go with Gary picked his team 2 weeks ago, who he'd have, and the 5 attackers. Now suddenly you can't have 5 attackers. Like it's almost like he can't fit them all in. He has to make big calls, whether that's dropping a Pogba or someone. He just has to make sacrifices.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think I don't think you've heard the last of that either. Carragher will be coming after Neville for that. Yeah. But it is a bit of a fantasy team. But then you sort of think these big personalities are hard. I mean, like I didn't even mention Cavani. How does he ever get in the team again? Yeah. You don't want to stifle a Mason Greenwood. You can't really drop Ronaldo.
Rashford's back now as well.
I'm not sure how it. And have they got the level of defensive midfield? I mean, Matic has been a fine player. I really like Scott McTominay as well, but definitely feels like they're a midfielder short.
Yeah.
At least one.
Yeah, in terms of the style of play, like 2 years ago they finished, I think, 2 seasons ago they finished third on the last day against Leicester. Are they any better than they were that day in terms of even the identity, the style of play? Have they really progressed that much?
Have they really? I don't know. I mean, it has felt. Gary Neville keeps talking about Ollie as a bridge, and I think it has felt better, and it has felt a bit more like United for a while. I don't know. It's almost like you touched on it earlier. Does the Ronaldo signing bring it to a head? Now there's a bit more expectation. It tilts the balance more in terms of it's another attacking player, and all of a sudden it does sort of feel a little less, at least with McTominay and Fred, for whatever you say about those two players, and then with the 4 in front of them, it did feel a bit more balanced. But and I'm sure we're speaking on a Monday night, I'm sure it'll come up on M&F, like how easy Man United look to play through, as opposed to like you said there, like not pressing in a pack. One player goes, it gets passed around the side of them, and then the fullback or whoever can bring it out. Whereas Liverpool, Firmino will press to a side, drive the ball towards Salah or Mane, who will be there, and if he gets passed back, then Henderson will be there. Whoever it is, the fullbacks will be there. So proper hunting in a pack. I don't think it's unfair to say you don't see that from Man United.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the time of recording, it's Monday. They have Atalanta on Wednesday and Liverpool Sunday. It's a big week. I mean, if they were to lose both them games, it'd be hard to see. It doesn't feel like a Mourinho where the players are downing tools or anything, or he's nit, but that'd be hard to come back from if he got 2 bad results this week.
Yeah, and in the run after that is that's the thing, isn't it? They've had a reasonably favourable set of fixtures, and it does. It's hard to see really where the next result is coming from. I'm thinking about the last Man United Liverpool game at Old Trafford when that finally got played, and Liverpool won easily there, didn't they? They just don't look, anywhere near. Well, but then again, like what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago, people were saying maybe the best top 4 the Premier League's ever seen. Man United, there's potential title contenders. So you see with Tottenham a little bit at the moment that how bad were they in the North London derby, and they're back on track. So things are not always as bad as they look. You're not always as far away as it seems. There's no, I mean, because I work with him, I'll go a lot off what Gary Neville says. There doesn't seem to be any immediate plan for a change of manager. But I mean, the pressure must be pretty big already. So I'm not sure what the next step is. And when that gets taken, you look around, who would the next manager be? I'm not sure. I suppose Zidane's quite a good fit. I'm not sure Conte is as good a manager as he is. So, I don't know. I think as it stands, I don't think there's any immediate signs that Ollie will be going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, moving on to Liverpool, obviously they do go to Old Trafford Sunday. It almost feels like they need that sort of win at Old Trafford. I mean, I know that one there last year, that was with no fans, and it was a far bigger game for Liverpool, but they always struggle there. Like Klopp, that was Klopp's only win there. It's almost like they need a statement to go to Old Trafford and push away United, especially with the two teams on current form.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When Liverpool have been at their peak, they've gone there a few times, haven't they? There was the 1-1 where Lallana equalised.
Yeah.
Remind me of some of the others, but I know what you mean. It always feels like
0-0 the season before that.
Like the games have underwhelmed and they've not quite been at their best. But they definitely, I thought they were excellent there at the back end of last year. And I mean, I don't know. I just think more about the way Liverpool have started the season. They look bang at it, don't they? They look like what every Liverpool fan hoped they would be once the centre halves all came back. They look as good as new. Obviously, Salah, a lot of people say the best in the world at the moment. He's certainly not far away from that. They look impossible to play against. I thought actually in the Chelsea game, because Chelsea got so much credit for what they did with 10 men, what got overlooked is that Liverpool were the much better team, 11 against 11, and caused Chelsea all sorts of problems. So I actually think, from what I've seen so far, Chelsea will come third, and I think I'd see it being between Liverpool and not Man United, Man City. I do think it will be another Liverpool Man City, because I think over the course of a season, Liverpool Man City will win more of the games they should win, and I just think Chelsea are rock solid defensively.
Yeah,
but I just think Brentford should have got something on Saturday, and I think Chelsea will drop more points in the games, like the must-win kind of games. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think Klopp actually mentioned it in his press conference there actually earlier. Obviously, Van Dijk is the one that everyone goes to, but he said if he had Matip and Gomez fit last season, it would have been a different story. Like he raised them so highly, and arguably Matip has been better than Van Dijk this season. Like he's probably been one of the most underrated defenders in the league.
Yeah, because he's unassuming, isn't he? He doesn't.
Yeah.
You rarely see him he does actually, the club put him up quite often for the pre-match interviews, and he seems like a lovely guy, but he's quite quiet, quite softly spoken. He's never going to be a big media guy, but was it the Tottenham away game he got injured in? Do you remember?
Yeah.
I remember he started that game brilliant. He's a brilliant player, John Matip. He is so underrated. And then you look at the two, like Konate and Gomez behind him. That's 4 incredible centre halves.
Even Nat Phillips is 5th choice. Like you probably won't get many better than him for 5th choice.
No, not and exactly. And now he's armed with a bit of Premier League experience. He's better for what happened to the club last season. So Liverpool will be very, especially with Salah in that kind of form, because it looks like Liverpool guaranteed a couple of goals every game. And how often are they going to let in enough goals to lose a match? Not very often.
Yeah, the other two teams, obviously you touched on Chelsea and Manchester City are just ticking along nicely now. They're getting the sort of the winning mentality of just knocking games, taking them off. 2 really, really good performances away at Chelsea and Liverpool. Like Liverpool game, the first half, they probably should have been 2-0 up. I'll even admit that. Probably second half, it was a fairer result. But even the way they went to Chelsea and did a job on them was very impressive.
Yeah, no, I thought actually the 3 games in the week, if you include PSG, because I watched that. I mean, obviously with the talent PSG have got, you can lose that game. Anyone can lose there, can't they? But they were the better team in all 3 of them games. So I mean, you think how strong Chelsea have been, how good Liverpool have been at the start of the season, and the talent PSG have got. I mean, how good a team have you got to be to go to all those 3 places with fans back and be the better team in each and every one of those games? So. Yeah, you couldn't. I mean, you'd have City down, I think, as favourites. Dara, would you admit that?
You'd have to,
your Liverpool tracksuit on there.
You would have to. You would have to, like the best squad.
But then, in a similar way that you sort of, I kind of think Chelsea will drop points that you maybe wouldn't expect because they might not score enough goals. You might say that about City as well without a recognised striker. There is that. Well, I think the doubt comes from the fact is of without a recognised striker, will they have a few more games like the Southampton home game? They didn't put Burnley away till quite late at the weekend, and also Liverpool are back to something like their best. So you've got to be thinking Liverpool, Chelsea even it'll be a high points total again, won't it? You'd need over 90 to win it, I would say. So yeah, City slight favourites, but Liverpool really close, and you wouldn't rule out Chelsea either.
Yeah, Chelsea feel like a team that is almost like the first goal is crucial in them games. If Chelsea get that first goal, I mean, I know Brentford should have got the draw, but they're a real hard team. Chelsea they've conceded 3 goals this season, and it really you'll find that they'll grind out the 1 or 2-0 wins, where maybe City and Liverpool don't. I think that's probably Chelsea's style.
Yeah, they do look. Gary Neville was saying at the weekend, wasn't he? They do look like an absolute nightmare. Great keeper, really well organised. It's incredible. I don't think I've seen a manager have that big an effect that quickly on a team. They look really well organised. Strong midfield. It's just a little bit up top, isn't it? I think his strongest team that he likes to play is Havertz and Mount behind Lukaku, but Lukaku started great, and he's obviously an absolute top striker. Maybe Havertz and Mount not quite at their best yet so far this season, but I don't think it'd be long with Mount. I watched so much Chelsea last season, and I'm a bit of a fan of him actually. I feel like if he's not exceptional, he's very good every game. So I don't see him having a long dip.
Yeah, there's a bit of debate, the sort of Foden Mount debate. Would you be on the Mount? I'm a massive Foden fan. I think he's just the real generation. Like, I've never seen a young player like him since I've been watching the Premier League. And he was come through, obviously Rooney, but that was a bit just before my time. Like, I'd be Foden, but where would you sort of sit on that debate?
How old are you then to have missed Rooney?
Well, Rooney, when he burst onto the scene with 16, 17, 18, I wasn't about 4 or 5. Or
Foden does look like that. But I mean, you can be worse than Phil Foden and still be an unbelievably good player, can't you? Yeah. So it does feel a bit like that with England now. Like Foden's gone to such a level where, like, even in the Euro, like he started on the left in that first game with Croatia. Didn't play amazingly, and then England looked a bit like they needed like a bit of pace in the team just for that. I think the issue with England, that's why it would have been like so interesting to see Kane go to City to see what Pep would have done. Because the way Kane is now dropping, it just feels like if you pick England's other best players, like Grealish, Foden, it just all looks really congested with England. And so the minute you had Sterling and Saka, it seemed like England looked a better team. That's not to say Saka's better than Foden. It just felt like the team was a bit more balanced. So no, I don't think Mason Mount is better than Phil Foden, but I do. But I think you can say that without being disrespectful to Mount, because I think no one leaves Mason Mount out, do they? Like Tuchel, Southgate, Lampard before that, and the reason for that is I think of all those, I think Mount has overall over Grealish, Foden, a lot of players in those types of positions is, I think defensively, like he doesn't, if you're, those games are always on a knife edge, aren't they? And Mason Mount, not only can he decide a game, but he will always be sort of 6, 7 out of 10. He's not gonna, he does his bit in the press really well. So when I say the press, I mean closing a player down, not the media. So I just think he's probably the most dependable and the most tactically sort of cute of those kind of players that England have got at the moment. But yeah, I mean, how could you not be excited by Phil Foden?
Yeah, I mean, he is something else. But speaking of Saka, him and Arsenal at the moment, they seem to be a bit more. I think the fans are connecting with the team a bit more, probably with the likes of him and Smith Rowe and a few more younger players that it doesn't feel as toxic. I know that they started the season poorly, but it just feels like they're willing to give this team a chance, that they're more likable because they're younger.
Yeah. Actually, I've just been having my hair cut and with an Arsenal hairdresser. an Arsenal fan anyway, and he was saying exactly that. That I just think, the thing is, for Arsenal aren't going to win a league again by buying the biggest names and outspending, City, Chelsea, Newcastle, whoever it is. So Arsenal do have to do it the way they're doing it. Then it's the case of, have they got the right people? Edu, Arteta, are the players the right players? Which I don't know the answer to, but they are. It certainly at least feels like they've got a plan, which is the only way for them to achieve getting back to where they want to do. Like you say, a bit more of a relatable team, lots of good young players coming through. The defence looks good. I've been probably a bit surprised how well Ramsdale's done that works. He looks much more comfortable with his feet. There's a few signs of that, and that's probably why you say with United, like inevitably with kind of the way it is in the media now, if your Man United manager, doesn't take much for the manager to be under pressure, and we have conversations like we're having, or who's in next, who goes. But Arsenal, Tottenham, it has only taken sort of 2 or 3 weeks, and the narrative does change completely. So I'd say Arsenal look in a reasonable place. I mean, they did follow up the North London derby by not playing particularly well at Brighton. So you'd have to temper it by saying they still look quite a way off. Certainly, though, the 3 we've really talked about, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City. But I'd agree. A more relatable team, a plan which you can see, and some young players doing well. So green shoots, Dara.
I mean, for the likes of Arsenal, Spurs, I know it's too simplistic to say that you follow the Liverpool way, but it kind of has to be that kind of model. Like Liverpool couldn't go off and spend the Chelsea, City, United. They couldn't compete with that, so they had to get the likes of Mo Salah. When let's be honest, no one really wanted like the top teams didn't want him, but he was a very good player, and you have to develop them. So that's the way Arsenal and Spurs will have to get back into the top 4, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. In a way, Liverpool, like you say, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham are all in the same boat. Obviously, just at the moment, Liverpool are doing it much, much better than those 2 teams. But Leicester springs to mind as well, in terms of you have to find the really good players before they're really good or world-class players. So that means obviously producing them yourself, or like good scouting, just getting in ahead of the ready-made sort of City, Chelsea, United can buy the ready-made star. The sort of the next bracket teams in terms of budget need to make their stars, don't they? And Salah's like the greatest example. I can remember interviewing him towards the end, and I remember getting battered for it a little bit from a few Liverpool fans, because I said to him, this was like, I don't know, he was nearly at 40 goals for the season at this point, and I remember saying to him then, would you have taken 10 goals and 10 assists at the start of the season, which I thought was reasonable. But obviously, I know he'd scored more than that in his time in Italy. But it felt to me like he would be maybe that level of player, like a really good player, double figures for both. I don't know. I think Klopp's even quite open about it. I don't think other people pushed him towards, no, this guy's absolute top draw. Someone, probably Michael Edwards and others, have done their jobs very, very well to get him on board. He's quite good at football.
He is. Hopefully he signs that contract, which he should anyways. I'm pretty sure. I think FSG would be, I don't even know the criticism they take, and even to replace him, the money to replace Mo Salah, like, you're just well off. Wouldn't say just give him absolutely anything like 600 grand a week or anything, but give him the 350 or so that De Bruyne is on, or them sort of players.
I think they worry, especially when you're well run like Liverpool. You saw it a little bit on a lesser scale with Wijnaldum in the summer, breaking the structure, because it's almost like you pay Salah more, then you got to pay Van Dijk more, and Mane more, and Alisson more, and all of a sudden, and you see, like, with the way Liverpool buy and sell, they like to spend what they've already got in. So. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a model where they go absolutely all out. I think the most reassuring thing for a Liverpool fan is the Premier League feels like, more than it has done for a while, like absolutely like the centre of the football universe at the moment. The big, certainly the Spanish teams are in a dip. So where does he go better than Liverpool? Where does he go better in the Premier League. If he wants to be the best player in the world, like the Premier League's the place to prove it at the moment. And I know, like, especially working for Sky, we always sort of say that, but you've obviously had for a long time two of the best players ever being at Barcelona and Real Madrid. But that's it. So while Klopp's there and Liverpool are one of the best teams in the world, why does he go? Whereas before, when big players have left, not just Liverpool, but Man United, you sort of, there's felt like a bit of an inevitability. Even like Ronaldo going to Real Madrid, you kind of thought, yeah, that will happen one day. Yeah. But with Barca and Real being where they are, you think, where does Salah go better than where he is now? So, yeah, I don't know. I think you can sit reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, I am at the moment, but a club with money now is Newcastle. I think you did a report yesterday, sort of on Super Sunday, about the takeover in general. I mean, it's been worldwide news. I mean, how Newcastle have just suddenly rocketed to the richest club in the world. Like, I mean, the controversies, obviously, human rights and that is another side story. But on a footballing perspective, it's could be another powerhouse in English football now.
Yeah, it's good. Like you say, the human rights side of it is concerning, unpleasant, maybe, well, definitely. But from a football perspective, I just think they're a long way away. I don't know how they go about untangling themselves from the situation they're in now. They'd obviously have to have, and they will have probably quite soon, a change of manager, a complete change of squad. How would you sort of rally the troops and get yourselves out of trouble when everyone knows that they won't be around that much longer? So I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what the feelings, and I'm not close enough to it to know how they would feel inside the camp, but it must be, like anyone who's had a job anywhere where they're making redundancies and things like that, there must be an element of that kind of concern there, and I think they are in quite a lot of trouble. If you just take what they've got now, the current squad, I know you see a lot of people say that, well, it's a good squad. I mean, it's a good squad in terms of any player who plays in the Premier League is a half decent footballer. But I look at that squad and think I'd expect them to be in some amount of relegation trouble, especially if you've got Wilson and Sir Maximan, who haven't been sort of 38 games a season men in terms of their fitness. And once those two aren't around, it does look like a real struggle for them to win football games. And in terms of the long term, how it plays out with bringing players in, are they going to have to do like City kind of? They went for I don't know, mercenaries maybe too strong a word, but it was kind of the big money players they could attract, and then you start going up to the next level. But in terms of kind of Haaland is one name I saw mentioned this morning. It's never going to happen. That you have to. I don't know how long would they be away from that? What, maybe 3, 4, 5 years until you're in the Champions League, and then you can start talking about your Mbappes and Haaland or whoever the next big thing is at the moment. So I don't know. And from what you read as well, it's happened really quickly. I know that feels wrong because it's dragged out, but in terms of it actually happening this time, it's happened really quickly. So in the summer or a couple of years ago, there's a plan. Rafa comes back and they build from there. Maybe they had a director of football in mind as well. But now, this time, obviously, a lot of those options have gone, and they've got to, go back to square one in terms of their plan.
Yeah, I mean, these couple of years are going to be the hardest. First of all, they have to stay in the Premier League, obviously. I mean, I'm sure they'll still get back up if they go to the Championship reasonably okay, but it's attracting that player. Like, at the end of the day, Newcastle 19th at the moment, and even the manager, people are saying, who's going to want now, knowing that they're probably not the one they want to lead them to win a league title maybe in 5 years' time. Like, you have to get that. I mean, the likes of maybe the Jesse Lingards, I think Tarkowski's been linked, them sort of players. I mean, no Lingard's at Man United, would he come to Newcastle? But they're the kind of maybe decent characters that you need.
Yeah, I mean, they'd both be great signing. If they could get Jesse Lingard, I don't know. I even wonder. I mean, you used the examples of Haaland and Mbappe. I wonder if Lingard would go there at the moment. You think how good he was at West Ham. There's certainly a strong argument he'd make a difference to the Man United team if he was starting every week at the moment, where they seem to lack a bit of We've talked about things like work rate and pressing. He would maybe make a difference to the Man United team at the moment. So why would he go to a team in the bottom three of the Premier League? He might in a year, 2 years, when there's signs of progress, and obviously you'd think Newcastle will be able to start offering really decent money as well, which is, people never talk about it, but obviously the money does make a difference. So I wonder if Jesse Lingard would go there. I don't mean it disrespectfully, because Newcastle was one of my favourite, like from the early 90s. There's not been a more like exciting Premier League team, and City really, than when Newcastle took off, and they could have and should have won the Premier League. But at the moment, if I was Jesse Lingard, I think he might have better offers.
Yeah, no, that's probably right. I mean, in terms of other teams, I think probably the obvious team that everyone's kind of took to is Brentford this season. I think the way they played. I mean, Liverpool had a real handful there. Could have easily went out with a loss. Chelsea should have probably dropped points there. The better. So I mean, they really go for teams. Like, they're a real handful when they start pumping them balls in the box, and the amount of men they have in there as well.
Yeah, no, I love it actually. It's almost become like something to be ashamed of, hasn't it? Long ball football and direct football. But like on Saturday evening, the sun dips behind the stands, the floodlights are on for 60, 70 minutes. Chelsea completely comfortable in the game. It'd gone, I'd say, almost exactly how Tuchel wanted it to go. And then, I don't know, Chelsea tire a bit, they drop back a bit, and then it's and there must be a real art to that, the way they kept the ball alive, long throw after long throw into the box. And it's only like luck for Chelsea with the bounce of the ball and an outstanding goalkeeper, while they didn't leak a goal at the end there, because you've got no control over that, have you? Once it's dropping in your box like that and it's bouncing around. But he's, like, as a reporter as well, Thomas Frank's like an absolute breath of fresh air, really open, interesting. Like I said, we on or off camera when I said to you like what a good place it is to visit, how welcoming it was coming in there at the weekend. Great atmosphere. Yeah, it was just everything feels. I was actually just before we came on looking at the top of the championship, seeing like who the next Brentford might be, because there is, again, no like disrespect to Fulham and Norwich, but teams that come up and down, like West Brom's another one. You almost wonder if the fans themselves a bit, because in a way there's a lot more joy in winning the championship or getting promoted, winning the playoffs, than there is Watford's another one, getting bashed by Liverpool. So, but Brentford haven't got any, it's just a club, you can feel it with none of those scars. And definitely, like you said, could have beaten Liverpool, could have beaten Chelsea, really. So, the two up front are a real handful, like press teams. I don't know, and probably you'll look back and think a lot of the players they've got, we just didn't know how good they were. Like, I can remember being absolutely, the first Leeds game I did, I'd seen a bit of them in the championship, being astonished by how good Calvin Phillips was. And probably a few players like that in Brentford, like you look at them on paper, because there's not a lot of Premier League experience, you think, well, they'll dip at some point, or they're not that good, and it's atmosphere carrying them. But potentially there's a few players there who are a lot more capable than we realised, and are proving themselves right now.
Yeah, I suppose to wrap up the Premier League, I mean, strugglers, ones to go down. I mean, the writing's on the wall for Norwich already, really. Like, they can't buy a win. It kind of feels like that's just one position already taken up. And Watford now have already sacked the manager. I mean, Liverpool obviously is a tough game, but to lose 5-0, there was no manager bounce there at all. No. So like, who else? Like, I suppose they're the two obvious ones, if you like, to struggle.
Yeah, who we got in there? Who else? I mean,
Newcastle Burnley are there at the moment as well.
Yeah, you'd always back Burnley to get out, wouldn't you? Just because of the manager and the experience of what they've done. Although, I mean, I think they finished fourth bottom in the end last year, and all those teams run out of luck in the end, don't they? I mean, if you're sort of in and around it, then you feel like it just maybe takes an injury or two. Yeah. Southampton haven't convinced, although they got a good win against Leeds at the weekend. Yeah, I mean, Norwich are in real trouble, aren't they? I did their opening game against Liverpool, and they were beaten fairly comfortably, I'd say. Watford, you always sort of wonder with the change of manager, and also the sort of the model for buying cheap foreign players, and they buy them, and they obviously, like Richarlison is kind of the Watford model: buy someone cheap, get in there early, and sell them on. But you wonder, when you're changing the manager that often, when your model is to buy players from abroad and sell them on, where do you get your heart and soul from as a club? And you'd always think that they would be vulnerable. So Norwich, Watford. You'd think Newcastle will do enough in January, but they look in trouble at the moment. Burnley, like I said, you'd think they'll be okay because they're experienced and their manager. But sometimes you watch Burnley and you just think, blimey, it's hard work. Do you know what I mean? They never. It looks hard work for Burnley to win a Premier League game. And I think Dyche would admit that if they're on the wrong side of the margins, it's a real sort of effort for probably for all the teams at that end of the league to win matches.
Yeah, just going away from the Premier League. I mean, obviously England with the European Championships during the summer. Is there a bit of a hangover from the tournaments, the way it ended at all? Obviously, it was a poor result against Hungary last week.
Yeah, I thought actually the first Hungary game in Budapest, England played really well.
Yeah,
and also I was thinking about Hungary, and I mean they did draw with France and Germany, didn't they, in the Euros? And there were only a few minutes. I know they lost 3-0 in the end, but they nearly got a result against Portugal as well. So they're not a poor team. Having said that, it is the worst I've seen England play for. I think Southgate admitted as much. The worst I've seen them play for a long time. It just felt like the extra attacking player. I don't know whether they sort of had a bit less time to work on what they were doing, but it definitely felt during the Euros that England, they were a well-drilled, well-organised team, and with Rice and Phillips in there, as much as it's, England could pick like a sexier team, England were a real nightmare to play against. They conceded 2 goals in the whole tournament. One was a free kick, and as much as Italy deserved their goal, it was a bit sort of, bobbled around in the box and fell to someone, didn't it? So it wasn't. England were never cut apart. The only real chance I can think of them conceding the whole Euros was the Müller chance, and that came from obviously a bad pass from Raheem Sterling. So I don't know. It just feels like you had a few injuries, haven't they? A few players probably not on form. Kane, Sterling, Mount, so that they have been probably the attacking heartbeat of the team, and they've all probably had slowish starts to the season. You had a few injuries as well, Maguire, Stones, and it also feels like, I think, like the Hungary game being one where he's just trying to maybe make them a little bit more attacking, so losing a defensive midfielder and putting an attacking player in. And like we've seen with Man United, sometimes that can cause all sorts of problems. It just felt like a few times with Hungary, like one ball got Hungary out and like on the counter attack, and that just doesn't. I don't think that would happen to England if you had Rice and Phillips in there, because they're too good at that job of stopping other teams. I've got a bit of a soft spot for those kind of players anyway. I like your defensive midfielder. I love Calvin Phillips. I love Declan Rice. I do think as much as there are sort of better players in inverted commas, they're invaluable to a team, those two.
Is there a bit of a split between from the English people to Southgate? Like, he does get criticised a bit, maybe tactically at times he gets questioned. Is there that bit of a split, maybe Southgate in, not Southgate out, but the doubters?
There's definitely doubters. There's definitely probably, when you think about, well, I don't know, you're almost better positioned as an Irishman to comment on this, but that happened during the Euros, like that kind of English arrogance and an expectation. Like, even though the last 2 tournaments they've got to a semi-final, that they deserved to lose, but they weren't a million miles away from penalties, and they'd be sneaking through that. And whatever you say about that final, I don't know, even if Marcus Rashford's penalty goes in, doesn't hit the post, I think England probably win it. So that's how close they were. But you're right, in spite of all that, there's definitely an element of a strong element, I suppose, of doubt from certain people. I wouldn't agree with it myself. I don't really know what people expect. I just think it's almost a bit like what you're saying with Ronaldo at United. England have had this batch of talent come through, and with that, people want to expect to win and have exciting football. So the good thing is it gives England a bit more of a chance of doing something. The bad news is if Grealish is not, it's the one. Do you know what? It's the question of all the questions I've ever asked. If I do an England game and I don't ask why Jack Grealish isn't in the team, that was it. People go mad about it. People go mad about it, and it like to get into all the reporting side of it. If England, because of COVID, got 3 games in an international week, which has happened, then I could potentially be doing a sit down with Southgate 3 times, a pre-match interview on the day with Southgate 3 times, and a post-match. So imagine if I asked him about Grealish in every single one of them, what he would. So it is. I think that's going a bit more down the sort of reporter tactics side of things. But you have got to. I mean, what's the point in battering them over the head with the same question again and again and again? What you can think, oh, you should ask the question, but what's the answer going to be? So if he completely tires of it, then I just think you're going to get less and less out of your interview subject, that being Southgate in this case. But yeah, I think he gets criticism for his substitutions. He gets criticism sometimes for probably being a bit defensive. But I think he's looked at it and sort of looked at the Euros before last, Portugal winning it with quite with a real focus on control and stability. France were the best team at World Cup 2018, but they weren't like a particularly free-flowing side. So it might be changing now. Look how good Spain were and how good Italy were in winning it, and perhaps there's a movement towards more attacking football at international level. But I think there's been a real sort of focus on control and stability. And if you listen to Southgate, he does use those words quite a lot. But I think, it was a great ride in the summer, and people forget quickly, I think.
Yeah, I was going to actually be my final question on the Euros, like the whole tournament itself. Like, it does feel like a huge missed opportunity. It was basically a home tournament that had one away game. And I suppose, the final itself, like probably the behaviour of the fans outside the ground, has that blown the chance of it, the 2030 World Cup bid? There's talk of games behind closed doors now, maybe. I don't know how many it is, or a stadium ban. Has that blown that chance?
Don't know. It's not going to help, is it?
No.
It was, as an Englishman, quite embarrassing to see. I suppose I hadn't realised, but people who'd been to the Denmark game had started to say that there was, I think it was an easy ground to get into, that people could bunk in quite easily. So the word had obviously spread on that. I think it was the sort of euphoria of the summer, the fact that people hadn't had football for a long time. Also, those big sort of tournament final stadiums are so often kind of like Stade de France, out in the middle of nowhere. And there was quite a lot of talk about, if you ever go to Wembley, which, have you been?
No, actually I haven't.
No. There's now like a little sort of, one of those commercial villages all around it. So it's quite a hard place to ring fence. So I think all that plays into it, like the late kickoff as well on a Sunday, on a hot day, sort of all plays into it. But I wouldn't, people on social media as well, some of the things that were done and said, and the fans storming the ground, some of their behaviour, it's just so embarrassing. What effect it will have, I don't know. I was just reading today, it does look like England will be playing in an empty stadium at least once, which is probably deserved. We're quite quick to judge other countries for some of their behaviour, aren't they? So once you misbehave yourself, I suppose you deserve whatever you got coming to you.
Yeah, supposed to wrap up. A few people sent in a few questions. The first one will be, I suppose, the best interview you've done. So maybe that you've been sort of proud of in that way, or what any way you could look at it.
I probably am quite proud of. I did one with. I think we might have talked about it before. did one with Jurgen Klopp after the Merseyside derby a few years ago, with people, which does get brought up time again, because he lost his temper quite a lot. And I'm not proud for provoking that, but I just think when you go into the job, you never quite know how you're going to feel when it's a live interview and someone's really, especially like Klopp is a really confident interviewee, and you do sort of wonder, like, oh, if that ever happens to me, will I just crumple in a heap? Will I just start crying and call my mum? So just probably from a perspective of that, I managed to keep my composure and keep going. That felt like a big career moment, just in terms of, okay, I feel like if a really big character, if a really big personality comes for me, if you like, then I can deal with that. So that was quite a good moment for the confidence, I suppose, in that respect. Yeah, that one, I'd say that one for that reason.
Yeah, just on Klopp, is he a tricky character? I mean, I don't know. Did you see the BT one the weekend before the game?
No, I didn't. So I was on my way to a game.
Yeah.
I was on my way to Brentford, so I still haven't watched it. But he's
the broadcaster, the 12:30 again, and basically having a go. He's had Des Kelly twice. Remember the Brighton one last year? That was another one. He can be. It could go anywhere. When he's in them kind of moods, he won't back down.
No, exactly. Like I said, it's like a lot of managers rely on cliches. A lot you can tell, because sometimes I'll listen, because the manager will do, a row of interviews, and you can see them repeat a certain phrase or try and hammer a certain message. But I don't think Klopp does that. I think he's that confident that he really does just say what comes into his head, which I suppose it does make him kind of dangerous to a reporter, because it could, like you say, it could go anywhere. He's like, on the Saudi Arabia thing, he was the only manager really to speak with any confidence on players having the vaccine. He's really, especially when you think he's not even speaking his native language, he's an unbelievably good talker. But to be honest, it's not, like I was just saying, so probably the interview I think of most is that one where he sort of had a bit of a go at me, and so they're not always the worst situations. I mean, Des Kelly got a lot of credit for the way he handled that one at Brighton a year ago, whenever that was. So what he does give you, like, is an opportunity always to do a good interview, because if he's in a good mood, people will love listening to him. And let's face it, maybe not if you're the guy or the girl holding the microphone, but if Klopp's having a rant, people are loving it, aren't they? So it's more the games that where I don't enjoy, and I wouldn't want to name any names, but sometimes you go to a game, you think, this guy's not going to give me much, and then you look at the away team, you think, he's not going to give me much either. You never think that, Klopp. You never think that. Like, actually, I went to Brentford Chelsea on Saturday, and you think, Thomas Frank, Thomas Tuchel, I've got so many like good opportunities there to have a sort of good day in my role and to make a big difference to Sky's broadcast. So I don't know. I think maybe it takes a season or so, but after a while, you sort of, they're kind of that you want to be involved in the big games and like the big interviews. So and that almost means you kind of you welcome Klopp, really, whatever mood he's in, because I can remember, actually, I was in Dublin for his first press conference, and from that second, you thought, this guy's going to be unbelievable for the Premier League, and he absolutely has been.
Who's your favourite manager to interview and player to interview?
Player, well, to interview, I'd probably go with Klopp. As a person, this is nothing against Klopp or anyone else. I don't really know Klopp at all away from the camera. He's just good in front of it. From my point of view. But from a personality, like, I really liked Mauricio Pochettino. I still do. Did I tell you before when David Moyes shouted at me once?
No, I don't think so.
No, there was a Tottenham Sunderland game where probably not many people will remember it, but I think it was Patrick Van Aanholt was out on the pitch, and what happened is a scan had come in really late, which had like revealed a sort of complication or something, and so we had a shot of I think it was Jason Denayer telling Patrick Van Aanholt in the warm-up that he wasn't playing. It's like 20 minutes before kickoff. So David Moyes comes into the interview room afterwards. I said, look, have you seen this shot? I'm going to ask you about it. And he's like, okay, one question. I was like, okay, fine. But then when I asked the question, he gave like a very short answer to the point where I thought, if I just let that go and move on, I'm just going to look really pathetic and weak.
Yeah.
So I asked another one. But then then afterwards, obviously, David's really, he feels like I've stitched him up because we've agreed one and I've asked, well, it was at least two, it might have been three. But he shouted something. He was angry with me, and possibly justifiably so. But the other side of this partition is Pochettino doing a BBC interview, so he sort of heard it, and he after he finished his BBC interview, he came in, little cuddle, little like pat on the back. You're okay. You're okay. Yeah, I'm okay. So he was always really personable, and he would also say, I can remember Anfield once, Liverpool, Tottenham, obviously, and whatever the first game was, so Tottenham got there, does the interview and everything, and he must have stood with us for, maybe it wasn't an hour, it felt like it was a long time. He stood and chatted to us. Like really, he's just, like super relaxed on match day, Pochettino, and just friendly, and all his like backroom staff, pretty friendly guys. Miguel D'Agostino, Jesus Perez, like they're just always quite personable. Just people. After you've done a few games, you come to appreciate people who remember you and say hello and stuff like that. So the answer is twofold. Plot for the actual interview: Pochettino away from camera.
Yeah, and then I suppose player then.
Say again.
What player?
Oh, player. Sorry, yeah. Best player. Quite a tricky one. I did Pogba recently, and it was an entire interview about Muhammad Ali. He's very good, very open, quite starry. There's players that I really like, again, in sort of a Pochettino style. Like I remember I did Ben Chilwell, man of the match, after he scored on Saturday. He's like a really lovely lad. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a really good lad, and actually he's a really good interviewee. I feel like I'm forgetting an absolute. Throw some players at me who are good at interviews.
I just think Mason Mount always comes across
He's good, yeah. Joe, he does as well, pre-match interviews. If he's not doing them, he'll come and stand behind. I presume he does it to all reporters, but he'll come and stand behind my shoulder and try and put off whoever's doing it, whoever's shut up at the weekend. So yeah, he's a bit of a cheeky Jack. I really like Jack Grealish, and I remember being like the first time I did him, because he again, he sort of just hung around and was quite chatting, quite normal. I get the impression, you kind of think, I don't know if you had the same, but you sort of expect that he might be a bit sort of, I've said this to him as well, like a bit of a show off and a bit, I expected him to be a bit, I didn't expect to like him as much as I did, but he's very friendly, he seems very down to earth. I get the impression that he's the same lad now, he's a £100 million player that he was when he was a kid. So another guy who I really like, who I did recently, is Bukayo Saka. Who just a very like authentic. It's funny because some people give very polished answers, and yet you don't connect with them the same way. Bukayo, I think, will get there because he's a really bright lad, but he doesn't. He's not as polished as some guys, but he's really able to get across his real personality, and there's just something about him that just makes you smile. So he's another one. So I don't know. I throw them all into the mix. I can't pick an absolute favourite out of them.
Yeah, because you prefer the ones that are kind of, again, off script. Like you don't like the cliche answers. We go again. Sort of, that's when players tweet that after a lot. Like Saka, actually, I just remember in the World Cup, was it before the semi-final or final with ITV? He said he didn't even know who Jeff Hurst was. Or before the 66. It was just it's natural that way. Like he didn't pretend. You know.
You forget, you sort of, it's a weird thing as you get older, though, isn't it? You don't realise. Like when you said you don't remember Rooney breaking through, I was like, really? And at first time, I remember like going to Liverpool once, and I can't remember who the player. I think it was Dejan Lovren, but they were doing some things with these academy kids. But they were all sort of, I don't know, like 10, 11, and sort of mentioned Istanbul to one of them. And I don't remember Istanbul. So of course you don't. Like, you were like, well, I don't know when I did this interview, but you weren't born, or you were one or something. So it's weird how these things that seem like 5 minutes ago to you suddenly are like 15, 16, 20 years ago, whatever it is.
A couple of more best ground to go to in general.
Best ground. I like the sort of atmospheric ones. So it was really good doing going to Real Betis for England won there 3-2 a few years ago, and actually it played well, and that was like, I really enjoyed that. I loved Seville. It's kind of cool. I tell you what was another good one. Red Star Belgrade for I remember Ireland drew there 2-2
with Serbia.
Yeah, and it was the best. It's the best tunnel in the world.
Yeah, I've seen videos of it. It's kind of, I don't know, is it as bad as it?
But
that clip from years ago. But yeah, I think it looked very bad.
Yeah, no, I think they still got it. I presume they still got it.
Yeah.
But they got, so the players basically get trained in this, get changed, in this little office block in a car park, and then there's a tunnel. It's almost like a subway tunnel that would take you into a motorway or something. And the tunnel is like a couple of 100 meters. It's almost like it's not worth going back at half time. It takes you that long to walk there and back. But it's all graffitied and like intimidating, and you're coming out into an absolute wall of noise. So those two for away grounds. The Premier League. I love Goodison Park on a Monday night. I'll be sad to see that go, because it's the last sort of. I know, like, but Anfield has been modernised, hasn't it?
Yeah,
gone in and stuff like that. So feels and as much as I like, for example, Tottenham is pretty incredible. It's still like an arena, and I still prefer the sort of the gritty old ground. I enjoyed Brentford at the weekend, even though it's a new place, just like compact, intimidating, like a proper football place. You'd have to throw in Anfield just for the song, just to start. I always like to. Anfield is the one place I always make sure I'm out sort of 5-10 minutes early. Take your headset off, soak up a bit if you want to ever walk alone. You can't beat that. That's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, both the Liverpool grounds and abroad. Yeah, Red Star and Betis. Can I have 4? Am I allowed 4?
There's no rules to the question. Best match you've been to? It can be been to, reported on.
Leicester Man United at the weekend made me think of. Do you remember Leicester beating Man U 5-3?
5-3, yeah.
That was like proper. Like the ground was like actually shaking.
Yeah.
I think Man United was something like 3-1 up.
Yeah,
and Falcao played, and Di Maria. I think Di Maria scored. Do you remember that little sort of scoochy chip thing that he did?
Yeah.
So I remember I remember at a certain point in the first half thinking, "Oh my God, Man United are back. They're absolutely lethal." And then they got Vardy'd. That was the first time I saw him sort of storming up the pitch. I remember doing Vardy and Cambiasso after the game. Which is good. So that was really good. I've been there for. Sometimes you think more of like occasions. I did Sir Alex Ferguson's last game, which you think is sort of like, so you just take it. It wasn't a great game. I think Man United beat Swansea 2-1, but just a great one to be there for. And I was with people, I didn't know him, but I was with people who did. So at the end of the game, I was sat in his office, and he was but he was out doing interviews, and I felt so nervous being in there, because everyone else sort of, they'd earned this is like my first season, everyone else had earned their stripes. I sort of thought, I shouldn't be in it. He's going to walk in and think, who is that? So like necking a little beer and just running out of there before he got back, because I didn't want the telling off that might be coming my way.
Last one. Who do you get on better with, Cara or Gary?
Oh no, what a stitch up.
They won't be watching. They won't be
Both
watching.
of them actually. I've known Gary for longer, but I've sort of helped him out with a few kind of work things. So I'm probably sort of in touch with Gary more than I am with Cara. Having said that, Cara is a lot less hard work than Gary. Like comes to games, not sort of does what he's told, but you know, sometimes you need him to do a little bit. And Jamie's more or less, yeah, no problem. Whereas, you know, I think Gary wakes up about 5 a.m. and he's combative from the second he opens his eyes. He's you know, he's like an absolutely relentless individual, and quite wearing, I'm sure, for his poor wife. But he's just on your case. But I'm genuinely a massive fan of both of them. I think they're two of the best pundits, not just at Sky, that there's ever been. Honestly, Monday night with them two is incredible. I remember, obviously, Keys and Gray went, and then I remember, I don't know, would it have been like 8 months after that or something. Gary did his first Monday night, and I remember thinking, oh my God, feeling like really nervous for him, and he was really nervous, and to see where he's come, you know, from that point. He did quite well at the start, but where he is now, and then when they talk about Cara joining him, I was like, oh, no, that's Monday Night Football's only been one person. It's not gonna, and you know, it's just gone from strength to strength, really. So I don't know. Probably know Gary a bit better. Cara's nicer. I don't think Gary would mind me saying.
Yeah, I said they won't be watching anyway, so you can say what you like. You mightn't even like them.
Yes. Yeah. No. They are both brilliant for Sky and good guys.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Patrick, for coming on.
No worries, mate. Anytime.